demanding market. I see the demanding market, think about the people side. First, it has to be low cost. Such a complicated machine like something for the car, when you counting the price, actually quite cheap. It's a very low cost. I mean, automotive is a successful automotive is to make a very expensive machine affordable almost for everybody. That is automotive engineer's contribution to society. And so fuel cell, I mean, for this dynamic competitive market, possible is not necessarily transport for fuel cell. But anyway, we're talking about automotive, so therefore we see fuel cell potentially as a good candidate. And the next thing, of course, yes, about the fuel cell system. And furthermore, we didn't talking about one key difficulty for fuel cell is a hydrogen refueling infrastructure. How many hydrogen refueling stations we have, I can tell you, is almost the next to nothing. So we have a few dotted around. For example, if I take an example like the UK, how many petrol stations we have, I got no idea, to be honest. Almost every couple of miles, there will be a petrol station. It's nicely dotted around everywhere in the country. So that gives you the sort of confidence. Whenever your vehicle running low, the fuel running low, you can find a petrol station without a panic. Right? So that is the fuel hydrogen, that's the gasoline or diesel refueling stations being developed. How long took us? It's over 100 years to build that kind of infrastructure. And people start combining hydrogen. And saying is if I buy a hydrogen vehicle, I don't have the hydrogen refueling station, so therefore I go nowhere. That is true. That there isn't the hydrogen refueling station. But that is not the reason to kill the hydrogen. The hydrogen refueling station, we can always build it gradually. It's not overnight. Somebody, of course, needs to put investment in. That is the challenge and how. And you cannot switch over overnight from petrol. It's everywhere refueling station suddenly to hydrogen. That's just not going to happen. So it's a need a process. So basically that is, so that's what we see. And for automotive challenges can be, let's say, 2020 is already right in front of us, and there's a new challenge. What should we do? I mean, as an automotive engineer or automotive propulsion engineer and the powertrain. So what should we do? The next task is really think about 2030. If you take 2030 as a transitional, you may think about what is 2040. 2040 picture is quite clear. If you in any dot, quite easy, you log into a few key automotive authorities. One is European Automotive Directive. If you log in on their website, it's quite clear to tell you what they want 2040. If you log into sort of the city government, the London City Authority, for example, and it's quite clear they tell you what do they want. And what do they want is basically the CO2 level of the total country's CO2 emission, for example, UK. It is going to be 80% less, 80% reduction of 1990 level. So that is hard. It's almost an impossible task when you think about it. But why I say that? Because the industrial productivity is proportional with a nation's economy, and induction productivity is proportional currently, is proportional to your CO2 emission. So we need energy, and energy is came from deployable fossil fuels. That's all. So therefore, we need to emit so much CO2. But if these three are linked together, energy consumption, CO2, and the economy, well, 1990s level, well, today we are in 2019, but 1990, that's nearly 30 years ago. And over the last 30 years, so the economy has been significantly improved. Are you going to say, let's go back the economy, go back to 1990 level? do that, everybody will become significantly poorer than current. Right? So as an economy, you cannot do that. In reality, the economy needs to go forward. And we are not saying it's at 1990 level. It is an 80% reduction of 1990 level. So very much means you can't produce any CO2, but still keep the economy going. So if you translate that big requirement into your small vehicle requirement, vehicle contribute so far about a quarter of total CO2 emission. Not too much, they contribute about a quarter. One basically 25% or 27%, depending where you are. And so for us, what should we do? So at the very least, we need to control the CO2 emission from our products, which is called automotive, automobiles, and the CO2 level going to be 80% less than 1990 level. So that's the very minimum we do. If we fail to do so, we will be penalized as the automotive industry. We will be penalized either by the tax or penalty or simply tell you just shut down the factory. That is highly likely. So that is our pressure. So quite clear that 2040. That's why I say 2040, 20 grams per kilometer. Got to do it. If you can't do it, sorry, you cannot sell your products. Okay, so if you say I can't do it, how? And you reduce your vehicle from 1,400 kilograms in 14 kilograms. If you break it into a paper, that's fine. Possibly you can do that sort of thing economy. But in reality, you never ever can. You have to keep the vehicle heavy enough for safety, for pleasure, for comfortable, for everything. You have to keep the vehicle heavy enough. If you keep the vehicle heavy enough, you too much. So think about the 2040's picture, therefore becomes quite clear, which means I need so much power, let's say 100 kilowatts power, to drive my vehicle. The condition becomes the 100 kilowatts cannot be come from combustion engine as the way we are doing. Okay? So that is if you translate the CO2, it's more or less translated like this. If we use, let's say, gasoline engine as we currently do, and so we have to produce, let's say, the CO2 emission at the moment, finely tune the automotive system, 100 grams per kilometer is almost okay. We say good enough. The efficiency is still pretty poor, but we can drive that 1,400 kilograms moving around. That's fine. Give us 20 years. That's not 100 kilo. That's not 100 grams of CO2 emission. It becomes 20. But you have to reduce basically 80% of your CO2 emission. Are you saying it's your 100 kilowatts to drive that 1,400 kilograms of the vehicle? Does that mean this thing I'm not using 100 kilowatts, I do 20 kilowatts to drive the vehicle? Yes, you can drive that manually, and does not give you any performance. If a vehicle has no performance at all, you need to count where is your market. You want it. You got to sell something. So we end up in the situation as an automotive industry. That is the picture we are aiming at 2040. We need to produce a vehicle as comfortable, if not more comfortable than current level. The same is increasing. As I said, even the speaker, to start with, one speaker good enough. Today we have 12, 14 speakers in a single car. Who knows? 20 years later, maybe 20 speakers in the car. Don't ask me the reason. The reason is quite simple. People want it. And that's all adding the weight. So the weight is not going down, it's going up. So you have to concept that. But energy consumption, no option, has to go down. Unless you're not using any carbon content energy source. And that is our situation. So that's a 2040. So think about by then, where's your option? So electrification got to be coming. Good news so far, electricity, where the electricity came from, is not clearly being defined as our responsibility. We are automotive industry, but we're not power generation industry. So we take the power, electricity power, but it's not strictly saying where the electricity came from, we're using. Will be, but currently it's not. So once we take electricity in, and you can blindly believe that's not a CO2, but it's CO2 free. So for automotive industry so far, so that's the electrification give us one avenue to reduce the CO2 emission. Another avenue we're talking about the biomass, the biofuel. Let's give you another avenue. They won't solve the problem, but it can reduce the problem. And fundamentally, if you think about it, you're only talking about CO2. For 2040, I cannot really get a petrol engine, gasoline engine, emit 20 grams of CO2 to give a kilometer. If I cannot do that, why not I use another fuel? If the fuel contains zero carbon, if the fuel contains zero carbon, it doesn't matter how efficient my system is. Even my system is so bad, it's very, very inefficient. But in the end, since the fuel doesn't contain carbon, air doesn't contain carbon, I use it and then therefore doesn't produce any CO2. I'm okay with your CO2 regulation. Think about it. If that is your solution, think about which fuel doesn't contain carbon. It becomes very clear. Which fuel? It's a hydrogen, is it? It's a hydrogen fuel. It doesn't contain any carbon. So if we end up with a situation, if we got a hydrogen, we can burn it straight away into the IC engine. Quite simple, we not fundamentally change anything. And we just change the fuel. We still end up with perfect combustion. Everything we learned so far, everything we are familiar so far, can be directly adopted into IC engine. And of course, it's not absolutely efficient because you're going to produce a lot of NOx. But NOx, we know we can use the NOx technology to solve it. So that is a nice, I won't call it a destination. It's definitely not a perfect destination. But it is a good enough situation to be to keep your products going on the market. Think about it. If you don't have alternative, that is a perfect good alternative and fulfill all the CO2 requirements and comfortable stand your car. Then the efficiency becomes a less issue. You can make your vehicle as luxurious as you want for the market. It's going to be pretty heavy, but it doesn't matter since you will not really produce vehicle efficiency. That's an issue. So that gives us a reason why we say hydrogen is pretty effective for the long term. Of course, by then, it gives us a 20 years, so the fuel cell durability will be significantly increased, and the energy efficiency is high, and hydrogen is not free, so it will be costly. In that case, why not use a hydrogen fuel cell for 30 months and leave another market also going for combustion engines? Yes, you can do that. That is very much 2040s kind of a situation. So if I give you half answer of that, that's on the powertrain. It's not on the vehicle side. Vehicle side is kind of very different. And it will be much more differentiated market rather than a single technology dominating the market. But currently, as automotive engineers, we tend to be thinking about e-vehicle is for multi-purposes, and this is going to be, change the fundamentally. I say that is today, when you design a vehicle, you put the engine, I say 100 kilowatts gasoline into it, and then that engine will sell into the market. How the vehicle being used is not your business anymore, right? That is the current situation. If I put an SUV, let's say, down there, it's a 200 kilowatts performance vehicle, sell it. Either the guy will take it on the test track as a racing car, or a mother simply drop the kids to the high school it's not my business anymore. That is your, let's say, so the customer's responsibility. But in the future, it won't be like that, carry on like this. Because if the future electrification becomes more and more, we know the battery, it is expensive, less reliable, and it is deadly heavy, and we don't want too much of it. So we try to minimize the onboard battery. In that case, we rather design the battery fit for the purpose. If you only drop the kids, to the school, possibly you do 10 miles a day, a sort of commute. Possibly you don't need that large battery. Maybe you need 20 grams of battery per job. But if you are a businessman and traveling 200 miles per day, and you need possibly not electric vehicle at all. So that is the market to differentiate it. And then hydrogen kick in is the same. If you do a long journey, so you need a much more hydrogen, so therefore you need a bigger tank. And a bigger tank will sacrifice more space of your vehicle. But you only need that vehicle coming. Again, you don't need that big tank. Why bother with two big cylinder hydrogen tanks? One tank will do the job. You make your vehicle much cheaper and much more user friendly. And why not? And still give you zero emission. So in the future, the market will differentiate quite a lot. So that's on the vehicle side, of course. Case for us is the powertrain. Powertrain, what I just spent a little bit of time is talking. Give you an imagination what it is the 2040 one. Now, can I throw the question to you guys? What is the 2030? We only have 10 years from now on to 2030. What do you think the 2030 powertrain? Let's say we make the window a little bit smaller, passenger vehicle. Just the passenger vehicle, family cars, and the SUVs, basically this brand. And often people call this B is for a car, C is a kind of a small family salon, and D is a large passenger vehicle, large family salon car. K is a kind of SUV type. So it's a big thing in this kind of vehicle. Weight about 1,000 kilograms all the way up to 1,500 kilograms. That's sort of brand of the vehicle. So if we draw a small window about these vehicles, so what do you think? 2030 powertrain should be? Any suggestion? Anybody? So it's an open discussion. There's no correct answer. And only if you are right or wrong, if we record it at the year 2031 and show you are wrong. So that's too late. There's nobody doing that. Of course, if anybody proving that you are right, they only regret the state 10 years ago, I should follow this guy. He's so smart, right? So we're not recording anything. So anybody give hybrid. And when you say hybrid, what hybrid? So because hybrid, this word is very careful, but because more than one power source is called hybrid. And then there's often people say hybrid is electric, mechanical internal combustion engine, electric, and anything in between is called hybrid. But that's not absolute true, really. You mentioned possibly solar energy. Yeah. So that's a solar energy can be, hydraulic can be, and so it don't have to be mechanical plus battery. Don't have to be gasoline plus battery hybrid. So that's why when you say hybrid, that's a good word. But what do you do? Even petrol plus battery hybrid, where's the percentage? How do you define your hybrid? You can make. Remember, there was a program. It's called GIAN. I'm possibly not quite sure anybody heard about that program. Unfortunately, it stopped. It's talking about automotive, but in a joking way, funny way, talking about the performance. The presenter, Jeremy Clarkson, and his traffic So he made a joke, not very scientific at all. He said, I made my vehicle hybrid. Basically, 300 kilowatts power, gigantic engine with a tiny battery on top. That is a hybrid because I electrified my vehicle. If you believe or not, put a battery on top of that and deliver a little bit of power to make a light bulb shining on top of the engine. That's a hybrid. Yeah, in a sense, it is hybrid, more than one. So yeah, give a definition. So what's your definition? You think about hybrid? Yeah.
India is also giving a lot of power station as the vehicle. Government also encourages state encouraging and vehicles. In future, after 10 years, like petroleum, they are having petroleum, like they are having petrol. Like that, they are established power station. Like,
Great. And so definitely that's a good transition. I call it a full electrification. You build a more power generation plant, you make your electricity more available, and so therefore you can upgrade your national grid to the level can cope with the electric vehicle recharging system. And so in my opinion, what I say is, so there's a middle stone electrification, a pretty good one. The good one is, when you think about it, took us 100 years to build a refueling station system. Definitely it's going to take time to build an alternative system, such as hydrogen. Definitely take. It may not 100 years, but highly unlikely within a couple of years. That's highly unlikely. It'll take you a certain time. And well in the middle, if you got an electric vehicle, you charge the electric vehicle, you need to build up the electric vehicle recharging system. But that recharging system actually is taking the advantage of national grid. National grid is already built. It's not by us. It's not by automotive. The nation already built it. What you need is to steal their energy, get a small extension plugged into an electric vehicle. That's called the electric vehicle recharging infrastructure. It's much simpler. It's not because fundamentally it's simple. It's because somebody already did a hard job. You just take the advantage. But the question down here is becomes how big the advantage you can take. You cannot take other people's advantage without paying the bill. Basically, that is the solution. There's no free lunch involved. So for the electric vehicle, what's the penalty going to be? Going to be is going to be regulated very soon by the national grid. They're not very happy to let you take their advantage. The reason is quite simple is when to charge your vehicle. I mean, how the national grid cope with your demand. The reason I say that, the national grid is a balancing system. There's no large enough energy storage as a buffer for the national grid. But that's their problem. So which means the electricity generated is always balanced with the electric demand consumption. If one end is bigger than another end, they are in trouble, in a deep trouble. So that's why they have to be dynamically switch on, switch off a certain sense to cope with the demand. So that's a very typical story. People always say, if I got 2 million electric vehicles in London, after work, 7 o'clock, everybody plug up, that's it, the London is dead. Right? So the national grid cannot cope with that. And so that's why by the time there's such a big demand, national grid will ask everybody to pay contribution to make their grid so-called smart grid. How smart can it be? Even it's so smart, they cannot really cope with this kind of demand. The only way they can do that is they build a lot of power generation plant for the peak demand. The thing is, that's fine. If anybody plug in, I have 100 power generation plant, switch on all at the same time, I can cope with your demand. That's not a big issue. The issue is when you not demand. Everybody unplug the vehicle. What should I do with it? I got 100 generation power plants. In reality, I only need 2. I have to switch off the 98. Who pay the bill? They're not free. They got employees working that inside. They got investment inside to pay the bill. Unfortunately, you guys, that's it. Sooner or later, they will ask the money back. So there's a limitation. From that sense, there's a limitation for the national grid side. Basically, that. Or sometimes the people are not talking about it. Okay, we don't have to plug in and charge immediately. We can make the charge a little bit more intelligent. But instead of you plug in, you charge immediately, you charge then you can delay the charging. Instead of charge your vehicle at 7 p.m., possibly you can charge your vehicle at 2 a.m. And still give you a couple of hours to give you the full charge. Yep, that's all right. That's you can do that. This to me is not solve the problem. You're solving the problem. Yeah, there's always solutions that make the problem not so bad. But again, that's down to the number. No matter when to charge the vehicle, it's very much down to the number. Think about the vehicle. The power required is significantly higher than your domestic. We're not talking about kilowatts here. When you count your domestic appliances, the cooker, the microwave, the vacuum cleaner, etc. When you counting that, they're on the kilowatts level. When you plug in an electric vehicle, you're not talking about kilowatts. You're talking about 100 kilowatts. That means almost plugging in a single electric vehicle is almost equal to 50 to 100 households. That is the situation they end up with. And the national grid is designed for your household, plus the manufacturing industry, etc. It's not designed for suddenly 100 times bigger and suddenly 100 times smaller. There's no such a buffer. And we talk about one thing with the national grid. I remember I attended one workshop. The national grid is made quite clear. We need energy storage as a buffer. But when you need more energy, we can supply that energy. When that energy is not needed, and store it. The question is, what is the storage buffer? The ideal storage is the battery. Something is called battery. We've been working with it for a very long time. But for the battery, you're talking about kilowatts. That's not a big issue. If you're talking about gigawatts, as national grid, the gigawatts is the starting point. You can imagine how big the battery is going to be. And the battery has a life. But after the battery's life, what are you going to do? If you got hundreds of it, it's not a problem. If you got billions of it, what are you going to do? But so that's all the questions that you have. So overall, the national grid's idea is the battery possibly forget about it. But this doesn't sound work properly. It can work okay as a small, let's say, motorway service station. I got a sort of a few hundred tons of battery and keep a couple of charging points going. That's all right. That's not for nationwide. So that is the big challenge. Okay. So we extended a little bit. We'll try to discuss the electric vehicle. So which means electric vehicle got a certain good sense was that demand on the charging side is well beyond the convenience of the infrastructure. So infrastructure so far is very convenient. As that side, you are stealing the advantage or you are taking the advantage from national grid, which is already developed. The thing is, you take a little bit of advantage, that's fine. We all can coexist. Just like the current less than 1% electric vehicle, nobody really sensitive about it. National grid is okay. Actually, they're selling a little bit more electricity, they're happier. But by the time that less than a percentage becomes a significant percentage, then National Grid will realize they need to spend billions of pounds to get the grid a little bit stronger. By then, they're not happy. I can tell you, definitely happy. So, yeah, that is our solution. And the small transition is okay. So maybe that's a part of the solution for 2030. Then we got two. We have a hybrid, let's say plug-in electric for large vehicle, and which give us a good this. If your national grid gives electricity at a very low cost, plug-in take your advantage. By the time you start to complain, I can always refill my car with petrol. So the petrol will generate electricity on board of the vehicle, will keep moving. So that is why when you look at the roadmap, technology roadmap from automotive UK, they're not really saying when is the end of plug-in electric vehicle. We cannot see the end. Possibly well beyond 2030, highly likely driving 2040 and onwards. And that's good news for internal combustion. The internal combustion engine will go with it. So that's the one. But for the others, there's a question mark. The full electric, the sort of mild hybrid, etc. Mild hybrid may be out of the market because it's still to half. Pure electric is becoming questionable because of the stuff. So hybrid is there, and the electric vehicle is there. Both of them definitely good technology hold the full potential for 2030. Anything else for 2030?
I have two questions. First is that I learned about MCFC, molten carbonate fuel cell.
Sorry?
Molten carbonate
Oh,
fuel cell.
yeah.
The fuel in that is natural gas.
Yeah.
But in India, not in India, we have engines like GIAN engine, which can run on both petrol as well as natural gas. Okay. Can we classify that GIAN engines as hybrid? And the second, Toyota Maran, which runs on hydrogen. How do they produce hydrogen? Hydrogen fuel cell.
Well, okay. I think the first question, quite straightforward, is MCFC, molten carbonate fuel cell, and fundamentally it's good technology. And the beauty of it, you can take natural gas directly. The downside of it is power density and durability, and made it not suitable for automotive industry application for mobile. And for gigantic power generation plant, that's just a different categories of the research and study. So since our interest is the alternative technology in competing with internal combustion engine for automobile application, so therefore we're not interested in that. But if your field is electric power generation, and why the MCFC is compatible with your coal burning factory or natural gas burning power generation plant or nuclear, that's a different story. So you need to do further research. Personally, I never ever touched anything that way. So that's the first question. Second question, how to make PAN fuel cell? How to make it? What? Okay. That is a pretty good question. You need a machining line, that's it, production line. But in reality, this is so new. Globally, not many mass production facilities available yet. And I say that, but I did see some mass production line for PAN fuel cell, bipolar plates. And I also see some production line for the MEAs. Basically, that's the two fundamental stuff. Yeah, so there's a possibility to make it mass production in a continuous manner. Since it's a mass production, it has to be continuously produced to produce such a high content. Yes, there are ways to do it. And just currently, not many industry invest so much money for that. It's because the market is not that big.
No, my point was that if like Toyota company produce this H2 fuel cell and they inbuilt in the engine and they sell, and the problem of the customers are that they can't recharge, they can't refuel the hydrogen. Right? Can't the government or respect of the technology Toyota use? Like initially it became capital, but later on it for the position.
Not quite with your question. Did you see Toyota got this fuel cell vehicle, right? Are you saying they didn't sell well?
They use some technology to prepare that hydrogen fuel cell. Not government or some company take over the not take over, get a license from Toyota and produce the same hydrogen cell in each and every part of the world so that customers can easily recharge them or refuel them.
Right. So yeah, I think there's a typical chicken and egg problem here, right? And it's a chicken come first or egg come first. That's a traditional challenge question. But in reality, is for fuel cell is hydrogen is a question. Fuel cell is a question next to it. And people often say blame the fuel cell market because of lack of hydrogen refueling stations, infrastructures. But on the refueling side, people blame the hydrogen fuel cell doesn't sell so many. So therefore, it's not worth to build the hydrogen refueling station. That's a very typical chicken egg problem. The Mira vehicle, I mean, as a vehicle, it is nothing to me, in my point of view, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a perfect vehicle, give you the perfect performances, and if you can refuel the hydrogen into it. And if you say they don't sell so many because there's not so many customers, and the customer because the refueling station. If you suddenly pulled up 100 hydrogen refueling stations in London or in Tokyo, I guarantee you the people will buy the Mira vehicle because it's such a beautiful vehicle. Right? And the thing is, who's going to spend that money? Who's going to spend that time to build that 100 hydrogen fueling station? So that's the problem. And for the customer is really, as a normal customer, the only way we can do is we have to wait. Wait, one side vehicle is available, another side refueling stations are available. Then we can decide we go for the hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. And before that two available for us, we simply as a final consumer, we cannot afford it. So somebody needs to take the responsibility. Right? And that responsibility is not very cheap. And so the responsibility, in my point of view, is should be the authorities. They need to build up the infrastructure, then leave the vehicle production to the sort of automotive industry. Refueling infrastructure is not our responsibility in a sense. If the government wants to invest, they should do it. And also the end benefit, it is society's overall benefit. It's not individual's benefit. If I'm as an individual, I drive a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, so how do I get? I get a vehicle almost the same with the petrol vehicle. But the contribution, sad impact to the society is very different. This one produces water, that one produces the pollutions. As a society, which one do you want me to drive? The society, of course, wants me to drive a vehicle produce water, rather than produce pollutions. But the society needs in support. And who represents the society, that becomes clear. So that is really the situation. And if we carry on leave the business as this is a private sector, it is an industrial sector, leave it for the industry to solve it, we'll never ever reach to the situation to fulfill the government's promise, put this way. They promised by 2040 they have to reduce too much CO2. If they don't support the industry, they cannot do it. As I said, a simple story, quite simple. I'm an individual. I drive whichever the vehicle give me the performance the same. But the only thing I don't want is inconvenience for myself. The case in down here is if I drive a clean vehicle, I benefit the society. Possibly I have to pay more money for that. Then in return, the society needs to support the clean users of the clean vehicle users. So that's basically the relationship. And that relationship so far is not so clear. It's been debated. I can tell you it's been debated nearly the last 20 years. Continuous debate. Hydrogen fuel cell is not new. It's a relatively new technology, but technology itself, to be honest, at least as Loughborough, it's more than 30 years research and development already. So from our sense, it's not brand new technology at all. But we still cannot put into the market. That's a reason. That's a reason. It's a debate. It's a debate like this. Who pays the first money? And if you rely on the private investor, they don't do it. It's got to be the society pay to get the individual consumers to benefit the society. When I say society, it's not group of us. You pro, I pro, we don't have money, forget about it. And who has the money? It's a tax collector. Because the guy collects the tax, collects the money from everybody and puts into a pot. How do they use that pot to take back to the society? That's the debate. And constantly been a debate for the last 13 years after today, it's still not quite clear. But it's happening. What I can tell you is the other cities have no knowledge, cannot comment, but in city, they're testing. The city is a London police force. They're testing something like 100 fuel cell vehicles. Well, there's about 100 Mira vehicles tested by London City Police. And also they had something 50, 100 motorcycles. That's a hydrogen fuel motorcycles. So they're testing it, the police force, to prove the point. That's a good step. Once the London City Police are happy with it, they can expand the number. But they are the central fleet. They can build a hydrogen refueling station and use it efficiently. So they can build a very limited number, 1 or 2, good enough for police. Since the police vehicle, after duty, they turn together. They can refuel through a single refueling station or few of them. Very limited cost, but the benefit can be very big. That's a good starting point. Once they can kickstart, they can build more and more and more. Gradually, the sort of normal people will get vehicle and take the advantage of that. Yeah, so it's a started, finally, I put this way. Yeah. Any further? Yeah, comments?
So what is the source of hydrogen?
Source of hydrogen. Okay, good question. Right. Hydrogen is a very interesting thing. There's the richest chemical components in the universe, not only on Earth, in the universe, hydrogen. In theory, it should be the cheapest, but in reality, it's not, because the hydrogen doesn't exist naturally on its own. It stays in water, and water in the ocean, and plenty water on Earth, but it's in the form of a combination with other molecules. If you take it, extract it out, you have to spend energy first. So therefore, hydrogen itself is not a natural fuel. It's an energy carrier. You got the energy somewhere, you put into hydrogen. Hydrogen simply is one part of an energy carrier, and then distributed into a new system, you can use it. So end up with the question that people debate about hydrogen. If the hydrogen is made from fossil fuels, you are not saving CO2. Absolutely, you will not. You are even making the CO2 higher, because by producing hydrogen, there's an efficiency. The inefficient part, this means the excessive amount of carbon dioxide. introduced. So from that avenue, definitely that's not the future, but that's a proving avenue. So you can always reform natural gas, produce the pure hydrogen, and then supply the hydrogen for other purposes. So that is one proving avenue, but not ideal avenue. The potential for hydrogen is from other energy sources, such as one very interesting energy is renewable energy, but like wind power, wind turbine, solar energy. For these two energies, there's one interesting thing. It's a limitation by nature. For example, solar energy, you produce in daytime, but you need electricity. You need to store that produce during the daytime and use for the evening. As I said, store the energy in kilowatts, that's not a problem. If you've got a few solar panels at your home, you've got a few batteries, store that energy for the early evening, that's not a problem. But for nationwide, that is a huge problem. And one way to solve that problem is while they produce the electricity, you'll not really need it, convert some electricity to hydrogen. You can store hydrogen almost forever. Hydrogen, once it's produced, if you have a means to hold it, it will remain as a hydrogen almost forever. It's not naturally being oxidized or whatever, it just remains as hydrogen. Which means whenever you need it, you pick it. If you don't need it, then just hold it somehow. And then you may say that question is, if you're talking about a battery, you have nowhere to put your battery, and the hydrogen is such a low volume energy density, where to hold it? That's a key question. If you build a gigantic tank to hold it, yeah, you need a lot of that. But there's another way, and it's a proven research, it's a proven result, not by me, I haven't done anything, just read it. And the resources is hold in the cave. There's a lot of underground cave, and the cave is perfect. There are many caves geometrically perfect for holding hydrogen gas. So what the assumption is, converting the cave into hydrogen storage, always pressurize it underground, and then when you need it, you pick it out. So the good news is that's a proving. Yep, that's a hydrogen.
But it's just that, like a small bottle of hydrogen, burn it, can create a big explosion, double the explosion caused by GIAN.
Safety. Yeah, you're talking about hydrogen safety. And so I have a picture, possibly not worth to spend time digging them out. And quite easy to understand, hydrogen is the lightest gas. If it's leaking, by any means, if it's leaking, it's go straight up. If it's leaking and in fire, in flame, the flame is go upwards. And comparatively, if it's a petrol, if it's leak, gasoline, it's on the floor. If it's on fire, it starts on the floor. Hydrogen start a fire is in a high altitude. It's not very high altitude, but it's above your head, basically, it's on the top. So if both vehicles on fire, I think you can make your decision which vehicle you'd rather be closer to. I can tell you, if you're sitting in a leaking on fire hydrogen vehicle, you will survive, no problem at all. There's a research done by, I think, University of San Diego. They put a film, they deliberately got two vehicles, one is a petrol vehicle, one is a hydrogen vehicle. Hydrogen vehicle, they just let it leaking and set it on fire. And there's a petrol vehicle, that's a petrol leaking and set on fire. But half an hour later, the hydrogen vehicle is a hydrogen vehicle. No problem at all, just no power left. You cannot drive anywhere. And the petrol vehicle, I can guarantee you, that's not a vehicle. Well, that's just a pile of rubbish. That's it. So, it's in a sense, it's safer. You say explosive. Yes, it is explosive. In a way, it's very explosive because the flammability is very strong. You don't need too much hydrogen to be able to burn, set on fire. And so, which means if you end up with a situation in a sealed environment, hydrogen is leaking inside, they've got nowhere to go. And happen you want to set it on fire, then yeah, there will be a big explosive explosion. It's very much like a natural gas. If we fill this room, if we assume this room is very well filled, and if you leak in natural gas inside, when the natural gas leaks to a certain amount, natural gas and oxygen into a good enough ratio, I think I don't want to light a cigarette. Right? So hydrogen is the same, but hydrogen is much more difficult to hold in the confined environment, unless the environment is so properly sealed. And not many buildings are properly sealed. If you have any gap on the roof or around the roof, it will turn to leak away rather than stay. It's because it's so light, the lightweight.
But economically, what is the cost of like the power plant? And if the
Hydrogen itself, at this moment, I think commercial price, and I think in the UK the price is by energy is not significantly higher than gasoline. So fuel itself is not significantly higher. Although the hydrogen is made mainly from reforming natural gas, and that hydrogen is low cost, basically, you can afford it. Especially when you think about if you use hydrogen as a fuel for fuel cell vehicle, energy efficiency even higher. So which means your cost bill, energy bill, possibly below gasoline. But that's the one. For storage, yes, the storage system for hydrogen is going to be much more expensive than petrol tank. Petrol tank, I think we all seen underneath your car. It's just a plastic tank, and they cost you almost nothing. Don't repair it, don't replace it. Replace it, the dealer will charge you money. It's not money for the tank. It's the money for really for handling. For the service. So petrol tank is very cheap, and hydrogen tank is very expensive. It's especially 700 bar. Current situation even worse since there's not a big market for that. To the level of a plastic petrol tank, but it won't be this much expensive. Yeah.
Oh, sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
What's your comment on alcohol fuel cell? So the purpose of moving to fuel cell is to produce water.
Yeah.
If you are using a methanol or ethanol fuel in fuel cells, definitely it will produce CO2.
Yeah.
So what is your comment on it?
Right. Think on the method on the how do I say liquid biofuel fuel cell, methanol, ethanol, and when they react, on one side they produce CO2 and electricity. The argument will be if it's ethanol fuel cell, the CO2 will be consumed by the vegetation, and the vegetation will take that CO2 back into ethanol. So it is a nice closed loop. Will not produce the net amount of CO2 to the atmosphere. So that is the advantage of it. Something to support the liquid fuel cells. And the downside of it, or at this moment, is the technology limitation. The power output density for liquid fuel cells are too low. Methanol, currently we are doing something about the methanol fuel cell, direct methanol fuel cell. What we realize actually is a power output density, nothing compatible with the pure hydrogen one. Ethanol possibly is slightly worse than methanol. So that's the limitation. But that doesn't mean from the research side, we can always research way to improve it. The current situation is not compatible. Yeah, so the methanol fuel cell and the hydrogen fuel cell, power output density hydrogen fuel cell is significantly higher than methanol.
And hydrogen.
What do you mean?
Replacing.
All right, you'll be replacing using methanol to replace hydrogen, to replace to replace gasoline. Right. Yeah, that is one interesting way. What I realized, I have to be honest, methanol as a liquid fuel has a less attention in Europe, or at least in the UK, but it seems has a strong interest in India and China. I have to say that because I found that if you're not talking about use for fuel cell or use for IC engines, but simply talking about the fuel. Methanol fuel, the beauty of it is it contains less carbon. Basically, it's a CH4O, CH3OH, so CH4. So every 4 hydrogen, you got 1 carbon. Hydrogen to carbon ratio is significantly higher than the gasoline, which means that after the combustion, it tends to produce more water rather than CO2. From that sense, it's a low CO2 emission fuel. That's the positive side. And even better, methanol can be made from very cheap energy sources, such as sort of industrial waste, agricultural waste, or even food. You can make it methanol and ethanol. So that's the beauty of it. And the downside, there must be a downside. Otherwise, at least the UK as a nation will use it. The downside is the poisonous. So it is not very safe. It's not a very safe fuel in the body. And yeah, your close contact with methanol, the biggest impact I think is to the eyes, or it may damage the human body's eyes. So that's also. So it is a dangerous fuel in a way. And also, if you use it in an internal combustion engine, years ago, my colleague did a lot of research work on that. Brown Wrigley has done quite a lot of research work. And what they found that for the injector, the durability of the injector is very close. It's very close. Methanol is very close to the stainless steel. And the injector is designed for petrol, GDI injector. It doesn't last very long for injecting methanol.
Like fuel cell as a power, it will happen.
For large or for small?
For large.
Yeah. For large, question yes and no. I think in the future, the power generation, when you're talking about power generation, you're talking about gigawatts above. For that kind of level, fuel cell will be able to do it, especially the high temperature ones. The solid oxide fuel cell, SOFC, is very strong in that sort of thing, and at a high efficiency. But it's kind of selective of the fuel. For example, it's good with hydrogen, it's good with natural gas. Or the power generation plant is a huge question mark. You need to say advantage, disadvantage. Nuclear power generation plant, the beauty of that is zero emission. Plant, that's very dangerous. But I think the fuel cell side is a cost. Overall, it's a cost. Nuclear power generation plant is cheap. If you put it as a thing, from the current prediction, the cost of homogeneous power, yeah. Yeah, okay. Right, okay. Yeah, yeah, so